Alright, the purpose of the tutorial today is to show you how to build the 8th grade gumball machine in Tinkercad. Now, if you have not done this yet, go ahead and log in to the program. Um, Again, do not create a new account. Log in using your school credentials. If you're not sure how to do that, open up our website, go down to tutorials where you'll find this. And we have how to log in, how to change units, and then the some of the different project tutorials on how to build in Tinkercad. So to get started here, I first want to go in and create new design. Now it gives me some kind of crazy name. I want to change that. That drives me crazy. Let's just call it Gumball Machine. And out of the box, that'll work just fine. A few other things in here. Lower right hand corner, we want to take a look, and the snap grid's probably set to 1 millimeter. If so, we want to edit grid, change this to inches. As far as the size, it's not that big a deal. I'm just going to change it to 10 by 10. There we go. And one more thing, over on the left hand side we have the little cube with our different views. Home setting, zoom to a specific part, zoom in, zoom out, and then here I can change between orthographic view and perspective view. I'm not going to get into the difference right now, but please change this to orthographic view. So click one time and that should take you there. If it says switch to perspective view, you have the right thing. Okay, so once we've done that, I'm going to go back to my website here, and I want to go to projects and Gumball Machine. So what we're going to need here are these drawings. I feel it's easier just to make this a pop out so you can zoom in larger and it's just easier to look at. There's one. Fit the width. There we go. And we'll only need it a few times, but let's take this one as well. Pop out. Same thing. If I click this, fit the width. Here we go. So we're going to make a 3D model. This is not going to be used to make a drawing like you're looking at here. So when I made the drawings that you're looking at here, I used another Autodesk program that's also a type of 3D modeling, but far, far, far more advanced. Nothing we're going to get into in middle school. In this program, I design each part pretty much how we made it in class. So, the base, level A, I made, just duplicated it, and different things like that. I'd cut the holes in where we need them and make everything exactly as it should be. We don't have to go to that extreme. We can do this and make some things go a little bit quicker, a little bit easier here. So to get started though, let's go ahead back to here, to Tinkercad, just so I can see what's going on. And I need to start with a box. Kind of the rundown here. I'm going to go to the assembly drawing. I'm going to start with the base. I'm not going to put a chamfer on it yet. Then we'll make this whole subassembly like we did in class. And if you haven't finished that yet, we put level A, B, and C together in one subassembly first before we move on to the other parts. We're going to do that all as one section here because it really doesn't matter if it's separate. And then we'll come back, we'll make the slide, we'll put the pegs in place, and then we'll chamfer the base. The base. To my working drawing. Here's my base. Very, very simple. 5 by 5 and 3/4 thick. So, on my cube I just brought out, I'm going to click on one of the little white boxes in the corner and change these both to 5. Just use your keypad, 5, enter. Let's put it out a little better here. And our height is 3/4 or 0.75. There we go. As I finish each section, and just something I like to do, I like to change its color. I'm going to go to brown since it's wood. And that way when I bring in the next piece, it just has a little more contrast and makes it easier to see. Now, on the video on YouTube, I'm going to put some stuff down below so you can jump to specific parts in this video, or I'm going to also put in a couple links to help you out. You can check those out, and I'll be referring to them as we go through the video. Alright, so now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll make the initial subassembly, the 4-inch wide pieces, and then kind of go from there. For this, if I were to just bring over a box, it's going to put it down inside of the part, and kind of, I can move it up. It's just going to be easier if we get rid of that. Take a work plane, I'm up here in the upper right hand corner, and place it right on top of the base. Now bring out a box and drop it up top. Let's jump back to the machine working drawing here. So this is going to consist of level A, level B, and level C. All of these are 4-inch wide pieces, and they're all 3/4 of an inch thick. So, like I said, instead of doing each individual piece, we're going to make this one solid part, and it'll just make life easier. Since each part is 3/4 of an inch thick, you know, we got 3/4 will give me 1.5 inches, plus another 1.5 inches, so it's going to be 3 inches tall. So, we will make this 4x4, because the parts are 4x4, and 3 inches tall. Alright, that's just going to make this easier to work with. Bottom right hand corner, snap grid, change that to something smaller. For now, I'll go with 32nd. I'm going to go to my top view. Now is really a good place to show you the difference between the perspective view and the orthographic view. I'm in orthographic, I see only the tops, like we're looking straight down on, we don't see anything else. If I'm in perspective mode, that's not going to be the case. I can see other parts, especially when we're rotating through and looking at different things. It's not going to look quite the same. Like right here, I'm in perspective, I'm looking at the back, I can see the bottom and the side, or the back. That's not the case in orthographic, that's why we went orthographic. So back to the top. We just need to center this on the base. I'm going to eye it up here at first. They have rulers, they have dimensions that you can set. I can even drop this down in a corner and use these numbers, but sometimes this can be a pain. In this instance, that might work just fine. Let me show you how to use those, because it's not that bad of an idea to know how, at least. So I'm going to put this really close to where it needs to be. I got a little gap here. Let me try changing this to 64th and see if it gets me right on my lines. If so, great. If not, we can easily fix this. I'm going to zoom in just about as far as I can go. And my mouse kicking me back a little bit here. That little gap, a 64th, is going to be too much. So how we can correct that, change snap grid to off and use your arrow keys to line that up directly on the edges that we want there. There we go. Once I have that, I can do a couple different things. I definitely want to change my snap grid, but let's go back and look at the Gumball machine here drawing. I want the assembly drawing. And you can see it's completely centered around the base. The base is 5 inches and the levels are 4 inches. So there's an inch difference, which would give us a ½ inch the whole way around. SnapGrid makes this really easy. I can change this to a ½ inch, and with the subassembly selected here, all I have to do is hit, since I'm in the bottom left hand corner, I'll hit right one time and up one time. That's going to take care of our ½ inch perimeter the whole way around here. So simple way to fix that. I'll click the home button here. It shows this as the home view. I like to go to the upper left hand corner. This would be considered more of an isometric view or trimetric view. That way I can see more of the object. So there's that for the moment. Now we need to cut out the hole here where the slide is going to fit. And you can see the slide is slightly smaller than this hole. So we're going to just cut the slot the whole way through, and then we'll come back and place the slide in it after the fact. The level B pieces, each of these are sitting so they're an inch wide. So from here to here is an inch, from here to here is an inch. The whole thing's 4. So 4 minus 1 minus 1 gives me 2 inches. I need this to be a 2-inch gap. 3/4 of an inch tall because that's what all of these parts are. And I need it either 1.5 inches up from the base or 3/4 of an inch down from the top. Either way, as long as we get it where we want it here. So, I want to put that on the front. I just like to work with actual sides like it would be. I'm going to take another work plane and I'm going to place it right on the front here. Since this is red, let's change color to something totally different. I'm going to use blue for sizing. I always use blue for sizing. How about green? Okay, so we said that our height of our slot would be 0.75, like all the other parts. Our width was going to be 2 inches. And I could actually set it like we did here a few minutes ago. I can put it in the upper corner or a corner and use the snap grid to move it from there. I'm going to go to a 16th for now and just zip on over towards that upper corner. Get to the front view. Need to zoom in so I can actually see what I'm doing here. Let's see how close we can get it. Pretty close. I could see if a 64th of an inch will cut it. You can see here we're not quite there. There's still going to be a little gap. So instead of a 64th, I'm going to go back to off and just slide this on over. So I can still see here. I'm just a tiny bit off. And I just need to slide it down until I get where I want to be. I think it's easier if you can see a little of the gap and then come back and correct for it. There we go. So, since I need to be 3/4 of an inch down and basically 1 inch over, and again, the reason for that, this is 1 inch. This is going to be a hole, so 1 inch over, 3/4 down. I'm going to go ahead and set my snap grid to 1/4. So with that, of course, 4/4 would be 1 inch. So I'm going to go to the right 1, 2, 3, 4/4, and I need 3/4 down. So 1, 2, 3 down. There's my placement for this part. Now, at the moment it's set up as a solid. I need this as a hole. It can stick out farther. I could, move it back in farther here. That really isn't that important. What I do want to do here is set this so it's longer than the whole part. So the length really doesn't matter for this section as long as it goes the whole way through the part. turn it into a hole. In the little box here, just select hole. And what we will need to do now is group everything together. Since that's going to finish this so it doesn't turn everything red, I'm just going to change this to brown like the base. We'll select what's going to be the slot. I'm going to hold down the shift key and select the subassembly and the base. So all three things are selected. You can also do Control A to select everything. Up top, right above the shape box here, group. And there we have it. Much simpler than having to build section by section. Work plane can get in the way sometimes, but at the moment, since I actually want to have a slide made, I'm going to change the way the work plane is sitting. I'm just going to dump it down at the bottom, put it back where it starts at. I think the slide would be resting on the bottom of this slot. So let's take a work plane and set it on the bottom of that slot. I'm just going to go to the top view here and bring over another box. So let's take a look at the working drawing. Overall dimensions, 11/16 of an inch thick. I need, I just realized I forgot a dimension on here. I will fix this. Hopefully when you look at this, this is fixed, but the distance from one edge to the other is 1 7/8. I'll add that on there. So 11/16 by 1 7/8 by 8 inches long right here. So 1 7/8. Now, one of the files that you can get a link to right below on the YouTube video is this. 7/8. I know these, but I'm sure most people don't. On here, and please watch with this. The first column, of course, is our fraction. The second column is decimal, and third column is millimeters. We don't want millimeters. We just want decimal. 7/8 is 0.875. It was 1 7/8, so 1.875. Enter. That's the width I need for my part. The length was 8. Down here. And for thickness, I need to rotate around here. If you're using a mouse, the right mouse button will rotate. The cone is not what you want. Do not select the cone. It'll move it off the work plane, which we want to be on our work plane. We want this, and the thickness was 11/16. So again, we can refer to our sheet here. 11/16, 0.6875. So let's go ahead and do 0.6875. It's going to round down to 3, but that's fine. And here we go. Now, we could put this in place and then try and put in the holes and stuff. That's going to be more trouble than it's worth. Actually, it probably won't work out right. You probably cut into the rest of the stuff here. So, let's finish it here and then move it into the part. We're going to have, technically there's 3 holes. We're only going to put 1 hole in here. And the reason being, the 2 1/4-inch holes are blind holes. They do not go the whole way through the part. I don't have to put that in for what we're doing here. We're just making a 3D model. It doesn't need to have that. I need the through hole though, because it's exactly that. It goes the whole way through the part. Let's put in the through hole, and then we'll come back and deal with the pegs, which here's the actual pegs which fit into the holes. It'll be quick and simple. We'll come back to that. So bring over the cylindrical hole, or just a cylinder and change it to a hole, and drop it in here. Go to my top view. Now this is a 1-inch diameter hole. It defaults to 1-inch diameter hole, so nothing we even need to change here. One thing I do want to point out, notice how it's a bunch of straight lines connected to kind of give you that circle. In the little box here to the right, I can change how many sides it has to make it look much more realistic. I'm going to go ahead and drag it clear up. It's not really that big of a deal, but no reason not to. Now we just have to actually place it where it needs to be. For that, we could put it down to the corner and use the arrow keys with the snap grid like we've been doing. You could do that. That'll work just fine. Another option that I use a lot in Tinkercad because the rulers aren't really that good, bring over another box, change it to a totally different color. And now let me just jump back and refer to the drawing here. The center of this hole, here's my center point. If I slide up, it's 3 inches from the end of the part. Where I'm getting 3 from, 2 1/4 from center to center, plus the 3/4 from the center here to the edge. Add them together, you get 3 inches. And 15/16 over from an edge of the part. So, and really I could do this 2 possible ways. I could use the center point, or I could go off of, say, like here. I'm going to use the center point. I just prefer doing it that way. It's a good, traditional CAD programs are going to go from center points of circles to elsewhere. So let's go ahead with that. So it's 3 inches up. So I'm going to take this part and then make it 3 inches up. We said 15/16 the other direction. So there's my 3. Here would be my 15/16. You could just click on the little white dot and it gives you both. 15/16 is going to be a crazy number, so let's refer to our decimals here. 0.9375. So 0.9375, enter. There we go. What I need to do now is set that right along the edge of our part here. Let's see, my mouse doesn't want to cooperate with me. If you're using a mouse, another thing, if you hold down the mouse wheel and drag, it will pan. This is called panning. Let's try 30 seconds, see how close that gets me. That worked out great. I'm right on the edge. I could go to other views and check, but I'm positive here. I could even pan down and see. Yep, I'm lined up perfectly here. So with this hole, I'm going to move it so the center marks here are right over the center of the line. So basically right dead center through that block is what I want to have. I'm going to move it up so I can do the same thing the other way. There we go. So it's right through the center. Again, if you need to fine tune it, you could try 64th or turning it off, but in this case, it just happened to work out really well. And up here. And that should run right into the center of this. From the top view, it looks like a circle, but it's that cone. And here we go. That's placed exactly where I want it. I'm going to hang on to this and reuse it shortly. Let's rotate here again, right hand button on the mouse. I want to make sure that this cuts the whole way through. So I like to just take this and take the cone and drop it down a bit. Really doesn't matter, just so there's some hole showing on the top and bottom. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and group the two things together. So select one, hold down shift, select the other, group. There's our hole. All right. Pegs. Let's move on to the pegs. Now for the pegs, I'm going to change my work plane. I no longer want to be at the bottom of this shape. I want to be on top. So work plane, drop it on top. Here we go. I'm going to go to the top view. To make this easier, set it so it's completely on the work plane here. I'm going to use my block again here. Now, let's see if I can still line it up perfectly with the edges. That looks good. All 3 holes are on that same center line. That works out great for me. Instead of 3 inches in, I'm just going to change it to 3/4 of an inch in and place a peg here. So first of all, I'm going to change this to 3/4 instead of 3, so 0.75. And the peg's going to sit right there. Now, I mentioned I don't have to cut a hole and then insert peg into it for what we're doing. All I need to see is the upper part of the peg here. The peg is 3/4 of an inch in length, 1/4 of an inch in diameter, and it sits a 1/2 of an inch down, which tells me that right here. Basically, if we take our 1/2 inch deep, subtract that from 3/4, that leaves a 1/4 of an inch above the top of the part. So what I'm going to do is make a 1/4 inch diameter cylinder that's a 1/4 inch tall and just place it where these should be. And that's exactly how you would actually see it looking at the part. So back to Tinkercad. Bring over a solid cylinder. Same thing with the sides again. You can drag it clear up so it looks more like a nice round cylinder. 1/4 of an inch, so 0.25. Wait till you get both in, 0.25, enter. There's my 1/4 of an inch cylinder. Default, inch tall, don't want it. I need 1/4 of an inch again, so 0.25. Here we go. Kind of like before, I just have to set it so it's right on this corner, centered over that corner. Easier to do when we're looking straight down on it. Zoom in here so we can see exactly what we're doing. And let's just use the grid here. Once you get one part set up and aligned with everything, the snap grid should, you shouldn't have to keep changing this off unless you're making something totally different you haven't worked on yet. So that worked out really well. I could do this one of 2 ways, and really it's insignificant on which direction I go with it. The second hole, so that's the first one here. It's 3/4 in to the peg I just put in. From that point to the center of the 1 inch hole is 2 1/4. We already have that. That's set up. I could either use my little block I have and run it clear out to here. The whole thing's 8. This is 1/4 inch in, so I could do 7 3/4, or I could bring it clear up to the other corner and work backwards. In an attempt to make it less confusing, let's go up to the corner and work backwards. So what I need to know right now is 1/4 inch from the back end to the center of my peg. Or I could use my snap grid again, so it really doesn't matter. I'm going to set my snap grid to 1/4 of an inch. Let's do it that way. Let's make life easy. Zoom out so you can see the whole thing here. Let's jump to that for a second. There you go. And I'm going to go and place that. Zoom in on it here. So it's cut in half right on the end of the part. I want that to be 1/4 of an inch in. And again, on the drawings here, we're looking at a 1/4 inch into the center of that cylinder, or hole in that case of the drawing. But I'm at a 1/4 inch grid. One jump down, which is 1/4 inch down, and that gives me exactly what I want. So now the distance from the end here to the center of this hole is a 1/4 of an inch. That one is done. Now that we have that, I had the wrong thing selected. There we go. And if anyone sees what I just did, I messed one thing up. I meant to duplicate this, and I messed up. I just moved it before I duplicated it. So quick and simple. Duplicate button is up here in the upper left hand corner. Hit it. It doesn't look like anything happened, but when I use my arrow keys, there we go. So luckily, since my snap grid was set, it's really easy to get back right where I want it. Sorry about that. Good thing to see happen though, because that could easily happen to you, and it really is a simple fix. The blue thing, my sizing, shape, don't need anymore. I can delete it, select it, use backspace or delete key. And now let's go ahead and group the whole slide into one piece. Zoom so I can see the whole thing. If I come out here in no man's land, left click and hold, and drag a box over top of the whole thing, just the slide, selects all of that, and I can group it. Here we go. Let's change the color like the others to that wood color, kind of brown. Alright, so there's that. Now what I need to do is just put it inside the hole. Just select it. Use your arrow keys, depending on what your snap grid is, make it go faster or slower. Let's look straight on the front and see where I'm actually at. Everything looks good other than the fact I'm a little far right, so I'm going to drop this down to, let's say, 32nd. Being really picky, 64th. It just makes me happy to have this equal the whole way around there. As long as it's in there and you see the light of day around it, you're good. There we go. Because we had the work plane set up earlier, this is touching, which is fine. It's not actually in the wood, but it's touching, or good. One other thing I would like to do and like you to do. First, let's get rid of that work plane, get it out of the way. If you just take one and drag it out to anywhere outside of the way, it'll put it back where it originates. Let's drag this out so it looks a little more realistic, where we can see the holes and the pegs. So I'm just using the left and right arrow keys there to move that on out. We can see everything now, so that's good. The only thing we have two things left to do here, and one would be to put the hole into the base. Sorry, not the base, but the sub-assembly here, which probably should have done early on, just wasn't thinking. And then we'll come back and do the chamfers. Really simple, quick for the hole up top. Work plane, let's put it right in the center here. Drag out a cylinder and drop it up here. We'll go to the top. Now with this one, this would be level C. It's a 1-inch diameter hole directly in the center of the part. So 2 inches over, 2 inches down, or any way you look at it, it's 2 inches and 2 inches. Again, defaults to 1 inch. I'm going to take my sides and drag them clear up so it looks more like a nice round hole. All I have to do now is just center this across the board. I could bring over a box and do it that way. We could do any of the different ways we've used so far to set the dimensions here. I'm going to go this route. I'm going to set it against a corner. So instead of using a box and bringing it in, I'm just going to set it up the same basic way. I'm split right across this little node, which is exactly what I want to be to make sure I'm centered here. This one's a little off. Again, being picky, I'm going to turn the grid off and slide it over a bit. There we go. So I want 2 inches over and 2 inches down from the point that I'm at right now. Quick and simple. Let's change this to a half of an inch. An inch over, 2 inches over, 1 inch down, 2 inches down. That's exactly where I want that to be. So again, 4 steps left, 4 steps down because I'm on a half-inch grid. Gives me 2 inches, 2 inches. Right now, if I were to group this, it does absolutely nothing because this is sitting above, it's cutting air. Does me no good. So the thickness here was 3/4 of an inch. I just need to make sure that I'm at least 3/4 of an inch deep down into that part. That's going to take me the whole way. I could go quarter and do 3/4, but to make sure I'm completely through, there's my 3/4, an extra eighth just to make sure it cuts. Now, one major key. I don't want to select everything. Get rid of the work plane here. If I select everything, it's going to cut into the slide as well. I don't want to cut into the slide. I just want to cut through this part. So do not select the slide. Select the main subassembly here. Hold down shift and select the hole. Go ahead and group that. So now we've cut into this piece but have not cut into the slide. It's completely intact. And there we go so far. Last thing is just chamfers down along the bottom edges here. And one thing worth noting, this does autosave, so you don't have to worry about that. My chamfers go the whole way around the outside of the base. We jump back to here, take a look. It is 1/4 of an inch chamfer, 45 degrees. So what that means is basically from the outside edge to this point would be 1/4 of an inch in, and 1/4 of an inch deep here. So I played around with different ways to do this, and here's what I think is going to be the easiest. If your work plane's not clear at the bottom, reset it so it is. Let's bring out a box and just kind of drop it down in here for now. And what I really want to do here at the moment, I'm going to make 2 boxes, one for sizing and one for the actual cut. I'm just going to go ahead and use this one for sizing. Go to the front, zoom in on my box, and I want it to be right in line with this edge. I'm really close. Probably close enough it wouldn't matter, but again, when you get more into CAD, the whole point here is precision and accuracy. So I'm going to turn this off and make sure I'm as precise and accurate as possible. That looks good. All right, and then this is 3/4 of an inch thick. This is an inch high. That'll actually work out well for us here in a few minutes. One other thing I want to do, I'll make sure that this is drug out this way. Just drag it out. How far really doesn't matter so much as I make sure it's out a good bit past the part. For the actual cut here, there's a bunch of ways we could do this. I'm going to put a work plane on the front of the base. I'm going to drag out another box, make it a hole, and since it's a 45-degree angle, I'm going to change this to a 45-degree angle. Now, if you go on the outside of you can see the little red line changing, whether it's on the inside of the circle or outside. The outside, I can go degree by degree. On the inside, it snaps me every 22.5 degrees. It's just quicker and easier that way. So there's that. I'm going to take this And what I need to do is set it so it's 1/4 inch over into the part. So that can be the fun sometimes. Snap grid, definitely don't want it off. And actually, what I probably should have done is lined this up and then went ahead and turned it 45 degrees. I'm going to do that. There are undo and redo buttons up here. Always handy to have. Let's go ahead and set this. Let's get my grid on. I'll go small, 64th. And set it right up along the edge here. Turn it off, get it right on. There we go. Okay. We'll see if it works out exactly how I want it to, but I'm gonna set this point so it's centered up here. There we go. Now, if what I'm thinking will happen, again, like I said, I've tried a bunch of different ways to do this, and this is slightly different than what I've done, but it might actually work out well here. Now let's go our 45. Here we go. Yeah. And that should put us in a good position to cut right through this. What I can do here, zoom back a little bit. Let's slide this down a bit. And we need to have that go the whole way through the part. Now for that, base is 5 inches long, so I have to have this longer than 5 inches. About 6. There we go. And just drag it back using the cone. Key here is the cone. And that should take care of my cut. Now, you know, all this extra stuff is just cutting air, so it really doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt anything. Turns out I'm not 100% sure if we really needed this now or not. The way I was using it before, we needed it, and I was lining stuff up with the edge here, but this worked out really well, and you might just not even need this at all. So get rid of that. That's my 1/4 inch cut. Okay. So this is all just excess, not really important. To make life easy, let's duplicate this. So upper left hand corner, duplicate. I'm gonna slide it on over. The nice thing is, with this still being a square shape, I can just set this. I'm just taking 1/4 inch off. Now, one thing I should have done. Sorry, I keep realizing some things as I go because, you know, I use the program a lot, but not necessarily in this capacity. I'm going to undo that again. I'm going to change my snap grid to, oh, let's say 1/4 inch. Now I'll duplicate it and put it on over here. Let's see what we get here. So by setting that, that should give me 1/4 inch here, 1/4 inch here. Before I group and cut, let's take these, hold down shift, select both. I want to group them and I want to duplicate them. Now that I've duplicated them, you got to watch that you get the right direction here. We could go to top to make this easier. Find your little arrows here, these, and twist that 90 degrees. That should, by default, let's see if I'm right. Let me check this before I open my mouth. Get my work plane out there. We're close to where we want to be, so we got to tweak it a bit here, but right now that set is not quite where we want it. I'll come back and deal with those in a second. Now this could get a little bit confusing, but if you go back to your front, zoom on your front, let's get the work plane out of here. See, it does not want to cooperate. There we go. To the front, select that group and the main subassembly and group it together. For some reason, it decided not to select everything. There we go. So that cut 2 of my chamfers. Now I can come back and set the other 2 here. I was hoping when I'd spin those around that I wouldn't have to do anything else, but you can see that's not quite the case. With these, I should be able to just... Oh, yeah. Because of where the work plane was, up, down, left, and right aren't necessarily working like I want them to. So, flat on the right side here. If we set it so I'm right in line here, I just got to make sure I'm only taking 1/4 of an inch off. Right now, I'm sure you can see that's not the case here. Now, because I already chamfered one part, I should be able to just check and make sure I'm cutting through this bottom corner, because we want the chamfers to be all the same distance. So as long as that goes through here and it comes through that top, we're just fine. Now you could potentially, same thing over here, we're good. You could use a box and set it and size it using the dimensions from here, from the drawings. That'd be fine. That'd be perfectly acceptable. Or you could do it like I'm showing you here. Either way, as long as we end up with the right end product and you're seeing how to use these different tools, it's going to be just fine. Later on, you're going to need these tools to design your own creation, so it's imperative that you understand how to use these different tools and use them well and use them efficiently to get something to turn out the way you want it. So here we go. There's our final product. At this point, if that looks right, you can continue and submit the project to me. If that doesn't look right, jump to the view here. If that doesn't look right or anything looks off, you can go back and edit whatever individual pieces you need. You might need to ungroup parts to get to a specific piece that you need, and then just regroup them in the end. Because I'm not sliding this around anymore, technically, I could just select everything, either drag a box over it or Control A, or select one piece by piece holding down Shift. But in the end, this is what we want. Make it look like that and then submit. To submit, go to upper right hand corner and share, invite people, generate a link, copy this link and paste it into Classroom. Make sure you let me know that it's there, and that'll allow me to go in and check your parts. This will be a formative grade, so make sure you get that taken care of. Make sure you get it done. You don't want a 0 on this. Yeah, paste that into Classroom, submit it through Classroom, and you're all done.